BYU football spring practices roll on, final week of spring, and here now with BYU defensive tackle coach Sione Po'uha. And Coach, year two, we talk so much about the comfort level of players in year two. How's it been for you, year two, the comfort now in this program?
I think it's been awesome. For me, year two, for me as a defensive coach, understanding the nature and culture of BYU football and the brand of it, definitely, more familiar around this time, but I think more entrenched in it, if that makes sense, right? It's, and adapt to it, you become it. And so just being around the fans and going through that first year and understanding the culture and the brand, you just become it.
Where have you seen the biggest growth for the players and the scheme in year two now?
I think, when we first introduced it last year, right, we opened the playbook and it seemed like Chinese to them, right? They were like, hey, what's this? And so a lot of the players, what they were trying to do was trying to translate it from, the previous scheme and try to say, okay, this is like that, this is like that, this is like that, this defense like that, this coverage. But in this scheme, as we opened it up for the second time, they said, no, this coverage is this coverage, right? This technique is this technique. So they kind of just, I guess, made it more of their own, if that makes sense. And so now there's no more translating, and now it's just really what the defense is. And so for them to be able to understand it like that, and then now, because they understand it on a primary level, they can now know the little nuances, right, of the defenses, of how far I can go, how close I can cut it in different techniques and in different coverages and defenses.
I got to ask you, too, how is it having your son part of the program now?
Man, it's super awesome, right? He comes back from Mitch. I get to sneak in 4 more years, being around him and stuff like that. But K-pop, obviously, that's his room and he does it. So I see him from a distance and from far away. And, he's going to have 20 to 25 coaches in his life, but he got one dad, so I'll make sure I keep the gas in the car, make sure he's got food in the fridge, and other than that, man, K-pop can just do his magic.
And when you do bring up K-pop, how much collaboration between the D-ends and D-tackles in terms of what you're looking to accomplish in a given practice and then ultimately the season?
Yeah, it's super important, right? It's like the left and right hand. As you know, we're in charge of the A, Bs, and C gaps, and so we have to kind of play off each other. We've got to understand different leverages and how, if we just end up taking care of one gap, there's always a gap adjacent to us, which belong to K-pop's guys, and so we've got to make sure that we complement each other, know each other's leverages are, what our strengths are, how far we can, take different steps and stuff like that. So it's all synchronized on the front line, and so we do a lot of working together.
I want to dive in a little bit to your personnel. John Nelson comes back, and I think Cougar fans maybe don't realize how significant his absence was after he suffered that ankle against Texas Tech. Is he going to be a permanent fixture at D-tackle? And your thoughts on John Nelson and how he's performed in spring?
Yeah, John Nelson's going to just continue to do what John Nelson does, right? We came back, didn't skip a beat, right? Even during his injury and when he had to be out, he was always in tune, he was always in play, he was always in the film session. So it's like he never left, but he also gave his body opportunity to rest up and obviously take care of the injury. So him being back, he didn't miss a step. He's going to pick up where he left off, and if we turn on those tapes where earlier in the year it was against Arkansas, he was one of the guys that we ended up pushing that presence, and so not only his style of play, but just his nature of play really adds a lot to the defensive line, and so we're excited to have him back and excited to see what he does.
Was his position changed based on maybe projecting where he could fit best in the NFL in the future, or was it more a need last year and he just was a solid fit there?
Yeah, we try to put the best 11 guys on the field, and he was one of the best of the 11, and so we had to make sure we had to put him in a position to be able to succeed both in the defense and for himself.
Danny Saili coming in from the JUCO ranks. It seems like he's a guy that's got to be a factor right away. What's been your impressions of him in spring?
Yeah, man. That guy has a lot of raw tools, right? And so it's continuing to sharpen those tools, make them sharp, and be able to fit within the defense. And so for him, it's continuing to understand it. Again, he's going from one defense to another. He'll bring his raw skills with him, but we continue to sharpen it to be able to fit the schemes that we play and also to help him excel in his nature.
Who are some of the other players, that you feel like you could count on, maybe that you already know you could turn to in games when the fall arrives?
Yeah, we got a lot of guys in the room, and really spring is not a time to really kind of say, okay, this guy's here. Everybody kind of has their progression on their own, right? It's not like we're playing in a couple weeks. So every guy has made significant improvements in their own different phase, whether it be from a beginner to acquiring the playbook to guys who are now ready to go to the AP version of it. So it's really good to see in the spring that everybody's making a progression from where they were, 12 practices ago.
Have you seen a big jump from David Latu and John Talmoipeu, who were Snow College transfers a couple years ago?
Yeah, I mean, there's been times where we've seen them pick up the techniques and the defenses that we've had, and so you've seen those advancements in those guys, and it happens all across the board, right? All those guys have made significant improvements from day one. I mean, if you were to turn on the film now, there'd be a significant difference. So that's due just because of them putting in a lot of reps, them understanding the defense, and then their technique within the defense.
Last couple things here with Coach Po'uha. Do you feel like it's an area where you might have a scholarship saved for the post-spring portal for your position room, or do you feel pretty content with where these guys are at right now?
Yeah, I mean, you're always looking to improve your room, whether that's through the portal, through the following classes, recruiting class. And so we continue to get together to just evaluate the whole roster and see what happens. And so, that you're always looking for areas to be able to improve in. And again, that you can acquire that through next year's recruiting class and junior college or what have you. And so those are just different facets that you can continue to improve your roster. But man, for the spring and the guys that we've had here, everybody's made a significant improvement from where we were on day one. And we look forward to just finishing spring, man, and have everybody finish on top.
Last thing for you, much is made about the pass rush. What role does these Z tackles play in those efforts this year, and do you feel like you got some guys that can help generate that in the middle?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like talk about John Nelson. I mean, Arkansas game, he was always in the mix, right, with Batty and Blake and all those guys in there. And so our guys just having more of an understanding now. Now this, like our pass rushes now are a little bit different than a couple of years ago, and so now they understand it, right? They understand, okay, here's where I can bend, here I can complement other players, and so that understanding for all of them, kind of now they kind of just they don't learn the defense, but they take on the nature of the defense. And so for them to have that maturity, know how to work around and with each other, really helps the pass rush in that sense.